Hello everybody, Kyle here. I am here to actually record a bunch of videos because a lot of content has dropped the past couple of days. The first video I am here to record is my Top Gun Maverick review. So, Top Gun Maverick is the sequel to the 1986 film Top Gun, which I think everyone knows. But that was a film that explored, the Top Gun school where they trained a bunch of pilots, and Tom Cruise played Pete Maverick Mitchell, and Val Kilmer played Iceman, and you had a whole bunch of other actors like Meg Ryan and Kelly McGillis in the film. That film is a classic. It is a film that has withstood the test of time as one of the most, famous films of the 80s, one of Tom Cruise's most famous films, a film that they have been trying to work on a sequel for the past number of decades. And I remember them when they were trying to work on it, I think back in the early 2010s, if I recall, because it was around that time when a lot of these franchises from 20 years ago were starting to get revitalized, like say Independence Day or Terminator. And in the case of Top Gun, Tony Scott, who directed the first film, I believe was trying to work on a sequel. Unfortunately, Tony Scott passed away around about a decade or so ago, and that was, I think, a major blow to the film that was, I think, in the process of being made. But finally, they have made Top Gun Maverick, and it took a couple of years due to COVID and the pandemic delaying everything, but is it worth the wait? And I think I will say that Top Gun Maverick is worth the wait. It's a terrific film. It is, I think, one of those rare sequels that, I wouldn't say it's as good as the first film. It's, I don't believe, going to be as remembered as the first film is, but I think that it's one of those rare sequels that is still, I think, pretty good. Because a lot of sequels, they sometimes tend to either be too much like the first film, or they tend to kind of fall prey to being very disappointing, and this is actually not one of those. This film actually is a really well-made film that has a great story to it, and it has great characters, and the actors are all across the board terrific, from Tom Cruise to Jennifer Connelly to Miles Teller to Glenn Powell to Ed Harris, John Hamm. I think that I would say the biggest, strength of this movie is the aerial flight sequences, that they worked very hard to make sure that they were mostly practical. They were shot with real planes. I saw the introduction. I think it says, I'm not an expert on planes, but I think it was an F-19, if I'm correct, and that is what Tom Cruise was saying in the introduction before the film started, that they went in real planes, and I believe they had someone piloting it from behind as the actual actors were flying it. And it really makes for an incredibly visceral experience, immersive and exciting experience, and that's what you expect from Tom Cruise movies these days. So when you're watching these plane sequences, you really feel like you're inside of the cockpit, and especially when it's almost like the POV of the pilot inside, and you see from their perspective almost outside of the plane. In a way, it's a little bit reminiscent to, I think, the pod racer sequence in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, because it's like you're inside of a vehicle watching it move, and I really do love the way they capture this, and it's particularly great in the final third act of the film. And I will say the third act is where the film really takes off, because I think there are some flaws to the film. One of the flaws being that sometimes it feels like it takes a bit of time to get where it's going, and also sometimes it feels like the characters themselves are not as I think captivating as the ones from the first film. And I point towards Jennifer Connelly's character. I think her name is Pam? I'm not sure. I already forgot her name. And I think the unfortunate thing is Jennifer Connelly's a great actress. I love Jennifer Connelly. And she's very good in this movie. She really, I think, strengthens what's written on the page. But what's written on the page is not that good. And I think the problem with that is, I think I've seen people say how dated the first Top Gun is, but I will say that I really do like Kelly McGillis's Charlie character from the first Top Gun. I think she's an interesting, I would say, foil, I guess I would say, for Tom Cruise Maverick in that film. And I really do like that character. Jennifer Connelly's character in this movie, I think, is only there to kind of anchor Maverick in a certain direction that he'll end up at the end of the film. And there's a little bit of I don't even want to call it a side plot, but there's another character, the daughter of Jennifer Connelly, who, aside from one laugh, I think the biggest laugh in the movie came from this scene revolving around the daughter. But aside from that one scene, I don't really see why she's necessary. She's a great actress, the young actress that plays the daughter. But I don't really, it just, I feel like they could have done more with those two characters. Maverick himself is a bit different than the first film. He is a bit more washed up and a bit more, I think he's less confident than he was in the first Top Gun. However, Tom Cruise still plays the character just like he's the character from the 80s in terms of, I can tell that this is the same Maverick from the first film, but, 30, 40 years older. Miles Teller's phenomenal in this film. He's always delivering a great performance, and he's great, working off of Tom Cruise. I also really, really love it's kind of hard to explain, but the choice in the first Top Gun is that they don't exactly tell you who the enemy is. Who are they after? They don't do that in this film either, and I like that. I was afraid that they would be okay, the enemy of this movie is so-and-so, and then it would almost feel like the first film, wasn't doing that. So I like how they're not clearly stating who the enemy is. It's kind of similar to Dunkirk. Dunkirk, though, we knew who the enemy was, but they didn't really focus on that. But, overall, I think it's a pretty good movie. Some things are, with either some of the side characters. I think that also one of my standouts, I love Glenn Powell's Hangman character and Monica Barbero's Phoenix character. I think they're great in the film. I think they really add a little bit of nuance to the team of the new pilots. And also, I really love how this film is about Maverick. And it's not okay, Maverick's a supporting character. Because we've seen this in a lot of movies in the last number of years, a lot of sequels, where they focus more on the new blood and less on the original actors. Though I will say that I do kind of wish they focused even more on the new actors, maybe made the film a little bit longer, because some of the other actors, some of the supporting, new pilots, I don't think get enough to work with. But it's still, I think it's a fun time, and I highly recommend seeing this movie in theaters. And yeah, so thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you later.